So I'll hand over to you, Helena, initially, just to introduce the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, as highlighted in the paper that's been provided, accelerating housing delivery to support economic growth is a high priority for the Combined Authority. We recognise the complexity of the housing market at the moment, particularly with the war in Iran and various other impacts on the markets. However, this makes our ambition all the stronger, responding to local needs, regional growth and national targets, and building relationships with our local developers and our housing associations. The task will not be an easy one, and we recognise this, but through our proposed housing strategy, we aim to drive forward our strategic role of investor, collaborator, influencer and strategic planner, helping our communities and stakeholders to achieve their right mix of tenures in the right places and responding to our agreed 9 principles, which, as you will all know, were discussed last October. Our work continues towards agreeing a strategic place partnership with Homes England, and our housing pipeline is reaching conclusion, enabling us to begin to consider more clearly our housing priorities and our programmes that might support them. And as indicated in the paper, we intend to look at those priorities in part 2 of the housing strategy later in the summer and bring it back to this board. Through the strategy, we are planning for an ageing population, supporting people to live independently for longer, and ensuring families and younger households and individuals can find suitable housing options. And we see that as being extremely important. We want to plan carefully, however, to meet the needs around flood risk land, thinking about robust mitigation and resilient design and long-term adaptation measures. And our work around the Enhanced Water Partnership, which we'll have a paper on later today, will obviously show some of that alignment and how we're beginning to think about it. We will also consider wider infrastructure in parallel, whether it relates to power, transport, highways, water, or broader accessibility. But we recognise that we need to be both viable and sustainable, creating a vision for the next 5 years, yes, but also considering longer term opportunities. And then finally, I just wanted to say that the spatial development strategy represents a great opportunity to shape long-term growth and to coordinate investment and ensure that our housing delivery supports the region's economic, social and environmental solutions and ambitions. A true partnership approach to development is required, and hopefully the paper that we've provided shows the ambition and the start to that. So we're asking the board today to note the progress being made with the housing pipeline work in conjunction with Homes England, working towards the development of a strategic place partnership later this year. We recommend to the authority to endorse part 1 of the 2-part housing strategy as set out in Appendix A, and we recommend to the authority to agree to the development of part 2 of the housing strategy, identifying priorities for the combined authority investment and specific funding and programmes to enable delivery at that stage. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Just before I open it for debate, just a few comments that I've pulled out from the paper. First of all, I'm pleased to see that we're looking to ensure that we meet all our diverse housing needs across the whole of Greater Lincolnshire. So I think that's covered really well. And I note the aims of unlocking economic growth, employment, and also utilisation of brownfield sites. And of course, we got 8.36 million from the initial devolution deal towards unlocking brownfield sites. And indeed, we've used some of that money already in North East Lincolnshire, so that's very welcome. The strategy also recognises the challenges we've got around the provision of water and power, which I think we're all having a problem with across the whole of the Greater Lincolnshire footprint. So that's something clearly that we need to continue to ensure that we are addressing. And the strategy also recognises the flood risk issues that we face across Lincolnshire. Ironically, we have flood risk issues, but we're also short of water at the same time. It's good that we're doing all we can to take advantage of Homes England funding and working closely with Homes England. And the importance of social and affordable homes is also recognised by the Social Affordable Homes programme. So yeah, some really positive things within this strategy and pipeline. So any comments from members on this? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I'd just like to comment and say a really big thank you to officers involved in this. I was also involved. We engaged with many parties. There was a lot of thought, a lot of detail, and a lot of knowledge shared that's gone into this paper. So I'd just like to say a big thank you for all the hard work and presenting a paper that is full of detail and straight to the point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shreve.
Thank you very much, Chair. I may have missed it, but there is one part of the housing strategy which isn't clear to me, and that is this question of empty homes, which I know is an issue here in North East Lincolnshire and North Lincolnshire, and I suspect in the southern parts of the county as well, Boston especially. And I'd like to see something in there about empty homes and potential funding for bringing them back into use.
Thank you, Councillor Shreve. Helena, is there anything particularly that we could focus in on the strategy with regard to empty homes?
I think once we have completed the housing pipeline work, which will be at the end of this month, we'll have a clear idea on some of our key more urban centres that tend to be where we have the empty homes in particular. And we will be looking at and already have had discussions with some of the developers in Greater Lincolnshire around that particular issue. I am happy to look at in the next part of the strategy at how we can specifically address or look to address that particular point.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, with regard to the social and affordable homes programme, which is a government programme, isn't it? That does mention funding potentially available for the repurposing of empty homes, but it's not very specific at this point, I don't think, is it?
We will make sure that that's addressed further, and thank you for the point being raised. Okay. So it's clearer.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to see this report. Now I've had plenty to say about homes and housing before, so it's recognition of the housing strategy going forward as well, especially with regards to spatial planning that's coming, is very much appreciated, as is all the work that's going on with regards to the pipeline work. You know, the more we can see to be collaborating with Homes England, with where their emphasis is on delivery, then you know that's very good. Just a couple of concerns, and that's one that we're still missing anything on energy efficiency. Now, I know the Secretary of State is hell bent on pushing NPPF through that will try to limit LPAs and combined authorities from actually setting standards that make sense. But you know, many of us are striving to build more energy efficient homes that we know developers will actually build because they get their return on them as well. And this is about making sure that we're building secure, sustainable homes for the future that don't need retrofitting in 20, 30 years time, that actually, you know, people can move into knowing that it meets their energy needs at this present time, a massive great worry as we speak today. So that's one, I think. So energy efficient homes needs to be in there. Page 35 with regards to local authority priority sites, then I know it does allude to this, but they're not all going to be strategically significant, but then surely the delivery of all housing across the piece is the priority for us, regardless of whether it's strategic or not. Then we should be concentrating on as much housing as possible being delivered, although not all of it will need MCCA intervention. A lot of it is being delivered without that, but we just need to, I think, make sure that we keep the focus on whether it's strategic or not. But then when it does come to strategic, page 45 has got the housing pipeline project. Again, I understand why we're doing this. We want to be that, I think, is it the 7th pipeline project? So we get that funding from Homes England that is so badly needed. But my point on this is that what are the strategies that we want government to take notice of? At the same time that we've got the housing pipeline, and to be fair, it looks like it's tried to be in a way described as fair by having zones all around Greater Lincolnshire, and I don't think that's necessary, because we should be concentrating on where it can be most delivered rather than trying to, you know, be all things to all people. But if you then look at the document, which is the Fenland 2100 document, which highlights the flood risk that we're now going to government with was it a price tag of around £79 billion on it, saying that if we don't get investment, these areas will be the new coast of Lincolnshire, and it's now not a pie in the sky. This is a strategic document that's been launched. Then that coincides with at least 3 of the pipeline areas shown on page 45. So it's not that I'm saying that we shouldn't be building homes. What I'm saying is, how are we going to say to government that on one hand we want to build homes, but on the other, please give us some money because otherwise the land is flooded? And how are we going to mitigate one against the other, I think, is a question that we need to consider.
Yeah, okay. A few points there. Did you want to take those, Helena?
On the energy efficiency, within the strategy, there is reference to sustainability and the importance of it. But yes, I agree that perhaps when we do the full report, we can perhaps do a little bit more information on that. So thank you very much. In relation to coastal impact and looking at mitigation measures and thinking about how we highlight to government the importance of addressing these problems within our area, we do feel that the enhanced partnership was set up for that purpose, and that using all the partners that sit around that table, we can look at how in collaboration we can raise key changes to policy, key changes in terms of collaborative investment, and looking at new innovative solutions with the universities being present as well, at different ways of addressing, hopefully, some of those actions and issues coming from our 2100 partnerships. And we are working with partners, as you will see in my second paper later today, to look at how we make those connections. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, that's all good news. All I'm suggesting really with regards to the pipeline, because that pipeline is so important, is that if the water partnership it proves to be effective, which hopefully it will, and we get the attention and the funding we need, in the meantime, if we don't want anything to be held up, should we not consider the zones that are shown on page 45 in the pipeline project to maybe not concentrate so much on those areas, so that we won't get stalled for Homes England money because we're trying to get flood money. So I'm just saying there's a conflict of the two slightly when it comes down to civil servants measuring which one's the more important.
Okay. Can we take that into account when we're looking at producing the final document?
So in terms of the zones, they're representing some of the areas that our strategic pipeline relates to in terms of the work we've been doing with Homes England. However, we also have included a map that shows all of the pipeline sites right across Greater Lincolnshire, and we will be taking all of those sites into account in terms of how we address them in different ways depending on their needs and the reasons why they're stalled. So there will be different programmes that are appropriate for different types of housing, and we recognise that. The pipeline process with Homes England is only one part of the work that we will be doing, and that was a very specific piece of work that looked at key criteria that we all agreed, which is why those zones show where the shortlisted sites are looking like they're appearing, which is great because it means we're doing our job properly, because it relates to some of our growth areas and growth opportunity zones.
Okay, all right, thank you. Are you okay with that? Councillor Wright, yes. Councillor Baxter?
Thank you, Chair. On page 20, I'm glad to see that the commitment aligns with the corporate plan, or will do when the corporate plan is published. What's the timescale for the corporate plan? Where will it be presented to, and when?
Yeah, officers, can I ask where we are on the corporate plan?
Yeah, thank you. So the authority approved the corporate plan in December of last year, and it's published on our website. It is going through a comms and rebranding process at the moment, and so that's in the profile at the moment, but it's already approved and published in its raw form as in a Word document.
Councillor Baxter?
Okay, thank you. So clearly that orange bit in the text needs updating to reflect that. The new town that's mentioned on page 36, Where's it going to be, or where are the likely candidates for where it's going to be? And similar question, the veterans, are we still talking about a veterans village? And if so, where are the likely candidates for where it's going to be? Are they the bases or the former bases, or is it somewhere else entirely?
I'll hand over to officers on that one.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of Newtown, as I'm sure Councillor Baxter would appreciate, that will take quite a bit of time and quite a bit of work in terms of evidencing where we might locate a new town. We are looking at some options analysis, and we're looking at a start on that process, but it will not be one of our quick achievements in terms of the strategy. It will be one of the more medium to long term opportunities that we will be progressing. But it's important to note that the Mayor is very keen to look at the opportunity of a new town for Greater Lincolnshire and the benefits that that could bring for us. So in terms of timelines, that is going to take longer, which is why there isn't a lot of detail there at the moment. But the options analysis will be a really good starting point for that.
So do we have a timescale for the options analysis? Do we? I'm not saying that I kind of want a new town finished tomorrow. I'm asking, when will we identify the candidates for a location for a new town?
I would say a piece of work like that would probably take 3 to 4 months to complete, to do it properly. So that would be an estimated timescale at this stage.
I mean, just on that, I mean, the government did make an announcement a few days ago, didn't it, about some initial locations for new towns across the country, which obviously didn't include Greater Lincolnshire. So I guess there must be a process that one has to go through with government to actually, you know, register an interest in having a new town and doing what I would think would be a considerable amount of work beforehand to be able to justify it. So I would imagine it's quite a long and significant job to get to that position. Councillor Baxter, did you have another point that you wanted to make?
Yeah, I didn't know if Councillor Wright was coming in on the same point.
You don't mind, can I just say,
right.
just to not to correct you, but that list was not an initial list, that was the refined list. So there was additions to that list. So the initial list, they've actually discarded some of the original considered areas. They've put new ones in, especially 2 in the Manchester area, but Lincolnshire still does not feature in any way, shape or form in the town's list or consideration at this time, which is a point I keep making to the Mayor.
Okay.
So my
Councillor
experience of new major house building is the garden villages, which were announced in a great fanfare, I think in 2012, but benefit of the doubt might have been 2014. We've got one on the edge of Grantham. It's been announced many times, but not a single brick has been laid. So yeah, it is a long-term thing. My next question was about veterans village.
Yeah, Councillor Baxter. Yeah, it was just about where we are with the veterans proposals.
We are looking at 2 veterans proposals at the moment. We are working through viability and possibility of that. And we're having conversations with developers and partners with ideas in terms of locations. But it's not something that we are ready to share with the board at the moment, but we will be bringing something back in the future. So, so yes, we are progressing work on that and have made good progress in terms of some of that work.
Okay, and it is the intention to integrate veteran facilities with existing settlements?
We're looking at the opportunity of a new settlement, and also we'll be considering how the learning from that could be potentially applied to existing settlements as well. So we're looking at a mix of ideas in that space, and also thinking about how intergenerational living might be connected to a veterans location too.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. On October the 1st last year, the Mayor said that she expected work to begin on a veterans village before the end of this calendar year, I think. Is that still going to happen? And on page 39, the William of Gloucester Barracks in Grantham is mentioned specifically. Should I infer from that that it is a potential location for a veterans village? And if so, what conversations have taken place with Southwark Stephen District Council about it?
Helena, anything to report on that?
I don't have anything to report personally on the site mentioned. However, I can say that we are still working towards having a veterans village by the end of this year, and we are working with an investor in that regard. But that's all I can say at this stage.
Okay. I appreciate that some of these things may be commercially confidential.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I was just trying to make sense of the mention of the PWG barracks. Finally, we've got this bit about Nottinghamshire. I'm interested in whether colleagues in North Lincolnshire recognise the lack of demand for housing in your area, because it's marked down as an opportunity. I mean, I'm not sure if it was Southwark Stephen, we would see it quite as an opportunity of expanded housing demand. We currently have plenty of housing demand. Thank you very much. So with regard to the step fusion thing, we're presenting this as a positive for housing. I struggle to see how it is a positive for housing, in that it's going to create loads more demand and workforce and need for infrastructure and everything else without seemingly any money to pay for it. I'd be interested in officers' comments on that, or North Lincolnshire.
Helena, anything?
But just say, Chair. Oh, sorry.
I'll just bring officers in first, and then I've got several councillors who are waiting to come in. But if it's on that point, I'll bring you in then. Yes, over to officers.
Yeah, thank you. We had a presentation, I think, at this board, actually, the Business and Infrastructure Board on STEP. And yes, it's very long term in terms of that it won't be operational until 2040. The supply chain opportunities for the business community are in the here and now, because they're starting to work out what their equipment might look like and what the construction might look like on a large site. In terms of job numbers between Nottinghamshire, South Yorkshire and kind of Lincolnshire, they're up to around 6,000 job numbers in construction, and they're beginning construction this week and kind of next week to do a temporary site, and that phase will kind of build out. In terms of where the ultimate workers will kind of live and be housed, Gainsborough, as we know, is the nearest town to the STEP site at West Burton. So you can see opportunities for both supply chain and for housing, accommodation and growth to service not only that particular site, indeed the sites that are expanding across the south bank of the Humber, which are very large scale infrastructure and energy projects.
Yeah, thank you. Just on that subject, I mean, I did want to raise the question of, I mean, we have a site for 3,000 homes in the local plan in North East Lincolnshire at Grimsby West, which is actually immediately adjacent to the South Humber industrial and employment zones. And I thought that may have featured somewhere in this document, because that is actually in our local plan, and it's currently going through the planning process as well. So in that respect, obviously can't really determine what will happen in the planning process, but if it is approved, it will obviously be a site which would be ideally located to serve the South Humber Bank.
Absolutely agree. It is one of the sites being looked at as part of the housing pipeline work, and obviously quite a lot of detail has been captured as part of that process, and a lot of discussions with developers as well. So we are in the fortunate position of having a real clear picture in terms of some of our key large housing sites right across Greater Lincolnshire as a result of that. And Grimsby West will obviously be a key site that as an SUE we will be considering along with all the others within the housing pipeline work. Thank you. Okay,
thank you. Councillor Poole, did you want to comment?
Well, just to say we welcome the activity of the step fusion in Nottinghamshire, because those well-paid, highly skilled jobs are going to generate a lot of income, and they're going to generate a lot of mortgage payers, which is going to stimulate the market. And as regards to the commercial aspect of building houses, so I think it's a win-win, quite personally.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Anstead.
Yeah, question. partly on the veterans housing page 39. What research has been done on the sites to ensure that people actually want to go and live at those sites? Because in terms of other specialist housing, if you look at extra care units, there have been some. I can think of one in a village outside of Lincoln, which is still only half full after a year of opening, because that's not where people want to go. It appears that it was thought it was a good idea to build it and there's a demand for it, but there's not a demand for people to go to that particular place for it.
Okay, so I guess your question is around how we ensure that there's a demand in the locations that we are looking at potential housing pipeline locations. Yeah, for specialist housing, yeah. Any comments on that at this stage?
Well, we have a really strong evidence base in terms of the current market and what we know at the moment. That will change and will need reviewing, obviously. In terms of working with the housing developers, investors, housing associations, and really understanding where they're prepared to invest and if there are issues as to why not, whether that's around viability, whether that's around other issues, as mentioned within the strategy, we will be working with them to look at how we resolve them. But it will be different on a site-by-site basis. And obviously, it's a case of working in partnership with our local authorities, with our providers, and with our communities as well. So really understanding, you know, how we can resolve some of those problems that we know exist for housing in different locations. But they are very diverse. So it's hard to say one comment in relation to the whole of Greater Lincolnshire in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Alison Hands.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I just think that the report is a really good report. It's got lots of detail and the connection to economic growth, which I think is really, really important. I suspect that phase 2, if approved here, will be even more important because that is actually getting into the prioritisation, because clearly not all of this can be done. But one of my questions really for Helena is, has there been further consideration? I mean, it's really great to hear around brownfield, but actually repurposing of high streets, particularly in market towns, because utilisation of infrastructure that's already there for development. So that's the first thing. And there is, I'm led to believe, 300 million available from government for repurposing for high streets. Now, not to say we would necessarily get that, but has that been considered?
It will be considered as part and parcel of part 2, and thank you, Alison. And I do think it is an important part of the wider strategy work, and it ties in with the empty properties as well, very much so. So I think that whole area needs to be brought out a bit more strongly in the second part of the housing strategy, and how we will work as a combined authority in that space, because clearly we won't have every solution. It's how we support our local authorities and partners and landowners in resolving that problem, and that might be something we need to do collaboratively rather than individually. But yes, agree that it needs to be mentioned and referred to in the overall strategy in the summer.
Yes, Alison.
And I have a second one.
Sure.
So my second one is clearly skills in construction are challenged and are under a lot of pressure from a business perspective. And the financial metrics for developers are also quite challenged. So will this be considered and brought out in the second phase? Because I think that's really important in the delivery of the how.
Yeah, how deliverable are some of these housing schemes? Yes. Yeah.
This is where the kind of interdependencies take place between the various kind of different strategies and work streams not operating in silos. So certainly on the skills work stream, we'll be thinking through not only skills boot camps, which is a really useful kind of mechanism for people that are either in the industry and need to adapt in the industry, or skills capital programs in the future that will, you know, may have a kind of a increase in construction, etc. So that's stimulating the skills kind of market. In terms of the kind of the other areas, there is absolutely something that we need to do in Lincolnshire, which is about market making, isn't it? Creating the kind of demand, creating the kind of the places, and that's that goes back to the heart of the housing strategy, which is not only just about house building, it's about the communities, it's about the infrastructure, the water, the creating of other things such as transport or even, you know, kind of culture in that way. So this is where the corporate plan kicks in terms of creating kind of great places for Lincolnshire and being clear on what those priorities are. So the housing strategy is not in kind of isolation, it's joining up everything else, but we're aware of those challenges being acute in Lincoln, being national, but also being acute in Lincolnshire.
Thank you. Any other questions? Have I missed anybody? Yeah, sorry, Councillor Catton.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions. In the page 21 of the corporate plan, you specify community infrastructure levy. Is that, well, the question is, who will get that levy? And will it cover the whole of Greater Lincolnshire? Because I understand that not all districts currently have a SIL structure.
In terms of the SIL, then obviously that's a kind of a quite a hot topic. I know certainly in terms of the county, because of the provision of services, you know, between kind of skills and, you know, particularly kind of schools or other provision of services. I know it's a particularly difficult area. As we consider what priorities that we invest in, Homes England invest in, we'll also have to consider what the infrastructure, and I mean by that the wider infrastructure is, and what the role is on SIL on a case-by-case basis. We're not a party to that, you know, because we're not doing the delivery of this as a combined authority, but it'd be one of our criteria that we can consider when we're thinking about investment or working with Homes England. Is what I can say on that point at the moment, but I understand the challenges that there are around SIL.
Councillor Catton.
Thank you. The second question I had was in the report on page 21, it's for all residents have access to attainable, well-placed and appropriate homes. Are you saying that all the homes we're building are just for residents, and also 60% are going to be for social rent? Who are the owners of these houses going to be?
We recognise that it is a mix of tenures and a mix of people and families, and as I indicated in my opening comments, that it isn't just a case of market housing, it is thinking about a mix of housing. But from a combined authority perspective, we have to look at strategic housing in particular and the added value that we can bring and sites that we can help local authorities focus on. So we recognise that there is a role to play for Greater Lincolnshire, looking at all aspects of affordable and social housing, but it may not be for the combined authority that is as high a focus perhaps as some of the local authorities themselves. So it's a case of working together, understanding strategic priorities and through the pipeline work where we should be investing our support. And in whatever way that might be, it might not always be in funding.
I think we have to realise that obviously the combined authority is not going to be taking over responsibility from local authorities for delivering housing. We're looking at the strategic aspects across the whole of the Greater Lincolnshire footprint, still going to be delivered through existing local authorities, and planning will still be dealt with by existing planning authorities. Anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned affordable housing, which wasn't what I want to mention here. When you talk about affordable housing, obviously house prices in Greater Lincolnshire are much lower, my understanding, than the rest of the country. Would that not attract more people coming into Lincolnshire to buy that, rather than for the residents that are actually here on the salaries that are on in Greater Lincolnshire?
I think that's a really difficult question for me to answer at this stage. I mean, obviously, as I said, it's really important to look at a mix of housing. It's really important to look at what works for Lincolnshire itself, which is why we agreed the 9 principles that we did. We're using the evidence to help steer what type of housing and where. And we've done a huge amount of work on that for Lincolnshire. So I think the only answer I can give is that we will refer to that evidence and we will respond in terms of where our focus is on the types of housing that we develop. But we are also, as a combined authority, focusing on growth and housing for growth. So that will be the crux of what our strategy will look at, in particular, recognising that local authorities, as our local planning authorities, will continue to prioritise sites with regards to wider measures. Sorry if that doesn't answer the question as helpfully as you would like, but that's as far as I can say at this stage.
I don't think it's necessarily the case that low housing prices attract lots of extra people into the area. We, in North East Lincolnshire, we have the lowest housing prices in the whole of Greater Lincolnshire, but we have only got a very slowly increasing population. So I think there's a whole range of different issues that attract people to come into a particular area. Yes, Councillor Wright.
If I can just raise a point, Chairman, and it's not a pedantic point, it's a genuine point. I'm rereading page 21, which I've only just realised I missed. It does say that the combined authority is required to produce an SDS for the area, which will guide local plans, setting out housing growth as apportioned. Now, local plans have been given a 30-month time to be produced. So the Secretary of State has said everywhere must produce a local plan. And when I've questioned him about where SDSs fit into this, the Secretary of State's position is that local plans will be the bedrock of SDSs, not SDSs guiding local plans. So I'm just trying to decipher what that sentence means, because this is an issue that's a massive problem at the moment about confusion over planning and what's going on with SDSs being put in place before the whole LGR landscape has been completed, which would have made things much easier, and all the overlapping other landscapes we've got with regards to different policy setting. But I'm just wondering, is that sentence actually correct, that the SDS will guide local plans rather than local plans guiding the SDS?
Yeah, it does seem to be a bit of a contradiction there in terms of the relationships between combined authorities and individual local authorities, local development plans.
So we will look at that particular kind of language. So just a couple of weeks ago, we got the SDS guidance from government. So we haven't been in a position to kind of truly understand what the relationships were. You will recall at a previous meeting of this board, we brought forward a paper that said we wanted to do start some early work on a spatial development strategy and bring together the owners of local plans to work in partnership with the combined authority and set out a timetable of aligning local plans, aligning evidence bases, not duplicating in this particular space. And we've recently been awarded some funding to do so from national government to do that. So as soon as we can recruit and get the right people in place, then we will kick off that process in earnest. But we will look at the wording within the document now to reflect the guidance that's been published for us. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just going to ask, do all areas have a local plan, do you know? Everybody, the whole of Greater Lincolnshire? It's already been done.
Okay, do I have any other questions? Any other questions from members? No. Okay. So first of all, can I thank officers for a very detailed report and the work that's gone into this, and also in the way that you've responded to what have been some very challenging questions. I think it just indicates the importance that we as elected members put on housing in all areas of Greater Lincolnshire, and clearly it's an issue that's very high on the political agenda. So thank you for the work that you're doing on that. So we've got the three recommendations that are in front of us in the paper, which I think Alina read through at the beginning of her introduction. So and they've been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Right, moving on then to item 7 on the agenda, the investment framework approach for the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority. This is a report from Ruth Carver, Interim Deputy Director, which presents the investment framework approach for Greater Lincolnshire County Combined Authority for consideration this afternoon. So I'll hand over to Ruth Carver initially.
Thank you, Chair. So the paper in front of you is an update paper which sets out an investment framework. So you are well aware that one of the ambitions of the combined authority is to increase the level of investment across Greater Lincolnshire, that Greater Lincolnshire platform. In order to do so, we need to set an investment strategy. That investment strategy really clearly sets out where we need to increase the level of public sector and private sector investment coming into Greater Lincolnshire, and this strategy will set that out. Secondly, we are required by national government to set out what our prioritisation would look like and publish that. So when we are making decisions on investments and attracting investments, we are required to set out a prioritisation toolkit that effectively kind of gives you the methodology so that people that are either bidding in for funds or looking to invest in Lincolnshire understand what that looks like, and that is transparent. And lastly, a good thing to do is to set out where your major investment priorities might be. They could be within the private sector, they could be within the public sector. They could be in 3 different buckets. They could be in the near term, in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, or the next 15 years. But it is really important to indicate to both the market and to local and to government where your investment priorities might be, which is why we have prioritised an investment prospectus. So the paper just talks us through what those 3 criteria will look like in order to us to have a solid investment framework going forward. Most other combined authorities have something very similar, and it is good practice to do so. So I'm happily pause there and take some questions on the approach that we're taking.
Thank you very much for that. Over to members for questions. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. On page 50, paragraph 8 says the following have been consulted in the preparation of this report: Mayor and leaders of Greater Lincolnshire. I don't remember being consulted on it. I don't know if Richard, have you been consulted on it? So why are we saying that leaders of Greater Lincolnshire have been consulted when we haven't?
Not sure who the consultation went out to on this.
It's not a consultation, it's an update paper, but the missing word in there is constituent leaders because it was part of the briefing session that we had in pre-meeting.
Yeah, actually, we probably just need to amend that paper to reflect that.
I don't think that's what needs amending. I think what needs amending is the consultation process so that all leaders are involved. We've got a 2-tier system, and we are supposed to be working together, and it seems to me that districts have been deliberately excluded from the process. So that makes me unhappy. The second thing that I don't understand is how this document has been formatted. We've got report content, then information with 1, 2, 3, then background with 1, 2, 3, and then we've got some paragraphs that are kind of shoved in the middle, and then we've got 4 to 9 on the last page. Okay. Have we got a report template within this authority? And if so, can we please use it? And then the repetition, we've got what appears to be a definition of, in paragraph 3, of what is an investment strategy, a prioritisation toolkit, an investment prospectus. And then we've got different definitions for the same things. They might be compatible, but they're different definitions, again, on page 49. I'm struggling with the way the report is presented. Finally, the investment strategy, the prioritisation toolkit, the prospectus, when will we see those? Will we see them before the Greater Lincolnshire Pavilion at UK Reef? Or, yeah, so how do we, as leaders of Greater Lincolnshire and as members of this authority, when will we see the actual investment strategy, etc.?
Okay, thank you. A few points there, some of which you may want to respond to, some of which you might not want to.
So taking them point by point. So in terms of the consultation, this is not a consultation document. This is coming to you as the Business and Infrastructure Board, which is made up of districts and kind of leaders. So this is not a consultation document in that way. So we're seeking views on the investment framework approach today, and happily to take your views from that.
You're missing the point. You're missing the point.
Councillor Baxter, I think should give officers the opportunity to respond, but I will just say, of course, that, you know, the fact that we're having a debate today shows that we are involved in a discussion and a genuine consultation amongst members here about this paper. Ruth Carver.
Thank you. And the point about UK REEF, so I've set out in the document that the investment prospectus will be ready for May, and that it would be ready and available for UK REEF. Indeed, officers are working through that, and we've involved in a working group of all officers across the whole of Greater Lincolnshire. Both districts and constituent authorities are working towards doing that. That is based in 2 stages. So the first stage is a common narrative for Greater Lincolnshire, which sets out investment opportunities, sets out what we're about. And the second element of that investment prospectus will be about site specific, which we are due to launch in the next couple of weeks. We will be going out to each and every local authority to understand not just where their sites are, but where their private sector sites are being brought to market. And as I said, they will be in those 3 buckets. You know, it will be commercial sites, it will be housing sites, it will be, you know, all kind of availability, and it will set it out into a short, medium and long term, the 5-year, the 10-year, the 15-year, and then we will take a view as to which ones of those will be prioritised at UK REEF in the near term, and therefore we will understand other elements of what needs to be developed. And this is working in tandem with the housing pipeline work that you're talking about. We're not duplicating work there, we're aligning and taking that forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other questions from, yes, Councillor Catton.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed on page 48, you say the investment perspective is written for the investment community, and then further on, I think you define that basically as local, national, public and private sectors. What about the international sector? Are we not including them with our perspectives?
Yeah, absolutely, we are including those, and many of the investment community that we've had early conversations with, particularly at UK REEF, like kind of last year, were from the international investment community. So it is a consideration in that respect.
Councillor Catton?
Yeah, just can we add that to this sort of paper then?
Yeah, it's probably just something we need to add in. Yeah, Councillor Shreve.
Thank you, Leader. I mean, this is a high-level strategic paper, and it's a very brief paper, and it's all the better for being brief. I know that some members have got problems with the indexation within report, but frankly, I don't. I think it's a very easy read. I think it's very clear what we're trying to do, and I'm happy to endorse it in that basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shreve. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. I do want to pick up a little bit on Councillor Baxter's point with regarding if there's some kind of differential between being a constituent or non-constituent body or member with regards to how we're being consulted over this or utilised. Growth across local authorities is recognised nationally as at all levels of local government. In fact, the LGA's inclusive growth strategy paper, which highlights the 246 billion of untapped local government generated economy, which could be brought into, says it's at all levels. So we should be equal in this. And I do find it sort of ironic that we're working towards a paper that's going to be, you know, ready for prospectus at UK REEF, where it's been said that, you know, it's been looked at that non-constituent members aren't considered the same. And yet I've got 2 national bodies asking me to speak at UK REEF on my knowledge of local growth. So I'm good enough for REEF, but not good enough for the MCCA.
Make sure those comments are noted.
I just wanted to echo the point. The working group is full of all of the 10 local authorities across Greater Lincolnshire. Now everybody's working together towards UK REEF and the production of the investment prospectus. So that's at officer level.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Sorry, what working group?
There's a UK REEF working group that officers are involved in.
Okay, sorry, that's not mentioned in the paper.
Do we have any other questions or comments? If not, can I have a mover and seconder for this report and recommendations, please? Thank you, Councillor Shreve and the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Thank you very much again to officers for the report and for responding to questions. We'll now move to the vote. We've got the recommendation in front of us, recommended that the Combined Authority endorses an investment framework approach. All those in favour, please show. All those against? And abstentions? Okay, thank you, that's carried. Moving on then to item 8, the Mayoral Enhanced Water Partnership update. So this is a report from Helena Davis, Strategic Lead Infrastructure and Economic Vision, which presents an update on the inaugural meeting of the Mayoral Enhanced Water Partnership and initial actions collectively agreed. Before I hand over to Helena, I mean, I was at this meeting. Can I just say, I thought it was a really good first meeting, very positive. I think we had all the right people in the room with the local knowledge and influence that we need to be able to take forward many of the issues which were set up. We had a focus on flood risk, addressing water scarcity and identifying and removing barriers to delivery. And I thought as a first meeting it went particularly well, but over to you, Helena.
Thank you, Chair. So just taking board members back, in October 25, the board approved the terms of reference for this group and also looked at the membership and made recommendations for any missing membership representation as well. The inaugural meeting was chaired by the Mayor on the 13th of February, and as outlined in the paper, a focus remit was supported by all in attendance and discussed at length. The agenda covered items, as the Chair has pointed out, on flood risk and water scarcity as well, and a number of items in relation to that, which are reflected in the paper, and how we might identify and remove barriers to delivery going forward. This was the first meeting, but it was a very positive one in terms of the types of issues and the types of solutions already being discussed and the possibilities that the group might bring. The number of actions were agreed, a number of actions were agreed as a result of the discussions held, and these have been shared with you in full within the paper. We're hoping this advisory partnership to the Business Infrastructure Board will add value to existing groups that already are in place, such as the 2100 plus partnerships, and we already have meetings in the diary with the chairs and also the Environment Agency with regard to that. We will inform the board on actions and ideas as they get progressed, and we will help remove obstacles to growth, looking at funding innovative solutions, and hopefully for improving water management right across Greater Lincolnshire as the group becomes more established. The board is asked to note the formal establishment of this enhanced water partnership and to endorse the initial actions that have been proposed by the partnership.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Yes, Councillor Anstead.
Yeah, under the section on flood risk considerations, there's no mention of internal drainage boards being involved, and they really should be playing a part in some way.
Yeah, there was a representative from the internal drainage board there.
Just doesn't mention that in this report, though.
Yeah, well, I think we did agree at the last meeting of this board what the membership should be. That does include internal drainage boards.
It'd be helpful to be in this report as well to say that,
okay,
that they're involved.
Any other? Yes, Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I welcome the establishment of this board, because at the end of the day, water is everybody's problem. And what we've seen in the previous year, that we had excessive drought in Lincolnshire, which affected many areas with regards to food production. And then literally from November through to December, we had 41 days of continuous rain in many areas of Lincolnshire. And so we've seen the two extremes in what is a relatively short space of time. So I'm very keen on the aspects of water management, because it's only 6 weeks ago I was on the 631 at Bridgethorpe, going towards Market Rasen when the whole road was covered for about 600 metres, the flooding at the upper Ancombe. And within 3 days, it had all gone down the Ancombe and out into the Humber. So it just shows the example there how we should be managing water better. You know, we're getting the same amount of water, but we're getting it at different times or in shortages. And I think I'd really like to see this board look at how we store water, how we manage it and store it, and look at the sites, potential sites within Lincolnshire store the water, because it just seems to me crazy that it's all going down the rivers and out and lost when 6 months later down the line we could be needing it for irrigation and supporting food production. So as a focus, one of the focused areas, personally speaking, I'd like to see us collectively look at that. I think it's an ideal body to look at the collective side of that strategically for the whole of Lincolnshire. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Of course, it's not just shortage of water for agriculture in the summer. All the year round, we've got shortage of water for businesses and for potentially for new housing as well. Yeah. So yeah, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think this is, it's going to be a useful partnership. It needs to be. I've just got a question with regards to water management. Is water ownership already also being looked at?
I don't think, I'm not sure if that was anything specifically we looked at water ownership, but I think it's something we could perhaps.
Can I just, because I happen to know that the Fenland Reservoir and the Lincolnshire Reservoir, the intention is not for it to be in Anglian water ownership, so therefore it will probably go to foreign ownership. So it might be something that needs to be on the agenda because that needs to be looked at, because that's about the security of that supply going forward.
Okay, perhaps we can look at that. Yeah, we'll make sure that's encompassed in a future meeting. Yeah, thank you. Any other comment? Yeah, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. This is close to my heart, not least because the division that I represent is so prone to flooding and has been twice in the last 2 or 3 years, first from Henk and Babette and then more recently. What's missing from this report for me is any reference to the existential threat of climate change. Sorry to correct you, Councillor Poole, we didn't have a drought last year. We had prolonged periods of dry weather. We've got drought damaged roads all over Lincolnshire that are literally falling into the fen because of the prolonged periods of dry weather. And then dry weather, you're quite right, yes. Yeah, and I'm confusing it with the prolonged periods of wet weather, which have been related to us. And this is for me, man-made climate change, and for 99.9% of world scientists as well. We've got the same issue. The Business and Infrastructure Group, is that the group that was mentioned that's the UK Reef Planning Group? That's different to the Business and Infrastructure Board. True or false?
Can you just clarify that? Did you mean Business,
the Business
and
Infrastructure Group is a group that meets prior to the Business and Infrastructure Board, and it has representation from the constituent authorities and at officer level. So they have the opportunity to discuss the report in terms of preparation and add value if before it's finalised.
Does that include district authorities?
No, it does not.
It should do. I recommend that it should do, because as Councillor Wright has said, there's an awful lot of information within district councils relating to not just flood risk. The county is the constituent authorities would be the lead flood risk authorities, but in terms of planning and emergency planning and so on, the districts have an awful lot to offer and also to lose through this, and we really need to be joined up. Can I ask, Chair, what's happened to paragraphs 12 and 13? I know Councillor Shreve is not worried about ordering documents, but I would prefer we had some.
The points noted on the numbers, on paragraph numbers, I'm sure. And of course we're having a discussion about this morning, this afternoon. So it gives the district councils an opportunity to have their input into what's being discussed. That's part of the job of this board, isn't it, to discuss these reports and have a debate and ensure that everybody's view is being considered.
Yes, it is, Chair, but this is not a level playing field, and I don't bring with me all the knowledge and experience of our professional planning team and all the other officers of the council. And I've not been involved in the preparation of the risk report. All I can do at this point is comment on it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Helena Davis.
I just wanted to make it clear that district representation was and is part of the Enhanced Water Partnership, and that this reflects the discussion of the partnership and is sharing with the Business and Infrastructure Board the key actions and discussions that took place, and that the agenda was an initial agenda, and obviously there was an opportunity to shape future agendas through the partnership. So if climate change is a specific topic that members feel should be added to the agenda for future debate, then there is the opportunity to bring that to the table. This was the inaugural meeting, and actually for an inaugural meeting, it actually covered quite a lot of topics. So hopefully that reflects something that will be quite powerful as it gets going, and that trust is there from all of the members to share and collaborate.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll note your comments on climate change, Councillor Baxter, ensure that is, covered in future meetings of this particular enhanced water partnership arrangement. Alison Hands.
Thank you, Chair. So I think this is really positive, is the way that I would look at it. From a business perspective, from a farming perspective, trying to find that it's action orientated, which is really great. But one thing that really stands out, and I just wanted to ask the question, it's fabulous that we are going to share and discuss innovation from other parties who've got experience of this. I just wondered, who are the academic leaders in the space around water management? Do we know?
So we have representatives from Hull and Lincoln University. They work with experts in this regard. They took away from the inaugural meeting to look at how they might have a subgroup that specifically works on this agenda, works and looks at international solutions as well as UK solutions, and the research that they're already doing and sharing that with the group as we go forward. So I suppose the answer is I don't know specifically who they are yet, but I'm hoping we will find out more as the meetings progress and as the universities present and bring their findings from their subgroup to the group. At least that's the intention. Okay. And thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions on this? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I think we just need to be mindful, as we've said, it was the first meeting of the Enhanced Water Partnership. There are going to be task groups, they are going to cover specific topics, they are going to bring relevant people together, and we are going to advance that further. So any comments or suggestions are welcome from anybody around the table or anybody from within any organisations or departments. So please do bring them forward, and we'll see how we can best utilise that and get information and get action going forward for the residents of Lincolnshire.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. Well, given the invitation, I'd like to suggest that some of the meeting, maybe the first part or the end part, is held in the public domain.
Well, we can take that away. We take that away as an option and consider it, but not. We'll see what how that might be taken on board if we decide we want to do that. Right, any other comments or questions? If not, the recommendations are set out. Can I have a proposer for those, please? Councillor Shreve, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor. So we've seen the recommendations, notes the formal establishment of the EWP and endorses the initial actions proposed by the EWP. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. I think that's unanimous. Thank you. Right, that brings this afternoon's meeting to a close. So thank you very much to members and officers for your contributions. I'll draw the meeting to a close. I suggest we just have a 5-minute break, and then if we can reconvene just to discuss the performance measures for this particular board and the areas of activity across the county that we are addressing. So if we can reconvene at 4:25 by that clock. Thank you.